Hello, and welcome to another episode of Break the Cycle with me, your host, Joshua Smith. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Tuesday evening. I know I am. As you can see, we have the guest in the studio tonight. I'm really excited about that. Unfortunately, these sponsor logos are going to go right over his head, but let's talk about some sponsors first. Of course, we have Lorenzotti.coffee for all your delicious Italian coffee needs delivered directly to your door. Bring the taste of Italy home. Use BTC at checkout for a 10% discount. And TopLobster.com, the man, the myth, the legend, where you can get this awesome Disobey Your Local Tyrant shirt with Andrew Cuomo on it. Use BTC at checkout for a 10% discount, or join the Patreon Subscribe Star or the membership of the channel so that you guys can get into the Discord server where he drops all of his new designs 2 weeks before it goes to general population, and you get them for 30% discount. Big, huge, deep discounts. And executive producers of the show, AnthemPlanning.com, for all your emergency and crisis planning needs. Check them out today. See what they can do for your home, your business, or your personal life. They're doing a job that the government sucks at typically. Maybe not our guest tonight. For a much cheaper cost and a much more efficient, much more efficiently. I think that's what I meant to say. Anyways, guys, as you can see, we have an awesome guest in the house tonight. I should probably hide the logo so it's like not over you the whole time. Look at that. There we go. He is an Iowa state representative. Probably one of the most interesting guys I've ever followed. Definitely works on some great issues. He is Mr. Jeff Shipley. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, Josh. Great to be with you. It's just so impressive what you've built here, and an honor to be on the show and with your audience tonight.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, you are very liberty-based. You work in the Republican Party, but you are very liberty-based. You push for liberty-based policy all the time. Why don't you tell us about your journey and how you got... Oh, and this is Pickles.
Pickles made it back to the couch. Good.
And he's gone.
That's Cameo. He'll come back. He's doing a sniffing thing.
This is Shipley's dog, Pickles.
My best friend.
His best friend. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, how you got to where you're at, man?
Sure. So it's been a long journey, obviously. I guess it started probably circa 2005. I first opened up a John Stossel book and got very interested in some of the perspectives there on how government sucks. And then I went off to college, and I became acquainted with a gentleman named Alex Jones and listened to his radio show. And that was very interesting. Got involved in student government politics at a local level, served as the University of Iowa student government liaison to the city council. And that's when I first got experience in terms of speaking on controversial issues or being a public health nemesis, whatever you want to call it. Actually, that was when I ran a first campaign and lost, was so humiliated, and gave me a lot of perspective on what a terrible, losing, pointless campaign looks like, which I think gives me a lot of perspective on some of the libertarian candidates we've seen lately.
Ouch.
So that was 2009. So we failed, ran again in 2014 and lost. Was involved in the Ron Paul movement, went to the state conventions, attended the national convention in Tampa as a guest of the delegation, was on the state central committee for the Republican Party of Iowa, and then got elected to the Iowa House of Representatives in 2018, assumed my seat in 2019. Now I'm serving my third year as an Iowa legislator, a lawmaker responsible to the 3.1 million Iowans that live in this beautiful state, and thankfully I've been able to use this position to explore a very broad, diverse range of issues, of political issues, including the elimination of all of the Controlled Substances Act, the entire drug code, eliminating taxes wholesale, eliminating entire agencies of government, and a lot of things on that in terms of, so I'm very happy with, I guess, my political career thus far. I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to serve the great people of Iowa. And there's a lot of really important issues that I do view as life or death, or as determining the destiny of our nation. So we need every single person to step up and be involved in charting the course of our society.
Sure, absolutely, man. I totally agree with you. I think you've done great work here. Definitely.
Hey, thanks, buddy.
I've been following you. I know you have this beef with the Libertarian Party, kind of. What's that about?
I don't know if it's beef. I would just put it like this: is like a lot of people criticize me, and I have no idea who they are, and I have no idea who they are because they've never come to the Capitol, they've never reached out on an issue, they've never commented, supported. I don't think there's beef because, in my perspective, the Libertarian Party is non-existent. Like, I would really have loved when we were having our first ever legislative hearing on decriminalizing psilocybin mushrooms. I thought that would have been great if, members of the Libertarian Party could have been in there or write letters of support or showed up and testified in support of the issue. I don't know, maybe that's my fault for not building bridges, but I don't even know, like, who to build bridges with. Like, sure. I wouldn't know. So I guess if I've been critical, it's just because the only experience I've had is I've noticed Iowa libertarians, and again, when I say the Libertarian Party of Iowa, there's only like 3 people that I know of. So again, it's like, I don't know exactly what I'm talking about, but there was issues concerning major party status and ballot access, and if you want to be considered a major political party, then I think you need to follow the same laws as the major political parties. And again, it's kind of a tertiary issue. When I go door knocking to my constituents when I'm winning elections, very, very, very few people, if any, are swinging their vote based on my position on third-party ballot access. So, like I said, please reach out to me on any issues that you're concerned about. But if you're going to reach out on an issue, don't be offended if you're the only person who cares about that and it's not a priority of mine because you're the only one I don't know if that makes any sense. But so I don't think there's any beef. I want to be friends with everyone, but I think there is a big gradient in terms of political success. There's actually a gift I left in my car I wanted to give you because I wanted to congratulate you on all the things you accomplished lately. And it's called Morton Blackwell's Rules of the Public Policy Process. And it's basically just 45 kind of maxims or phrases or those kind of cliches, but they're meaningful. And one of them is like political technology determines success. Think of technology as tactics. I mean, there are ways to be involved in the political system. There are ways that it has been, me as a political scientist, have been scientifically proven to get more of an effect versus less of an effect. And there are a lot of political activists that beat their head against the wall for a year, get nowhere, and then quit. And they blame everyone else, but they need to blame themselves because they were incompetent, because they never took the time to learn. They never took the time to talk to people who've been involved. They never did their homework. They just had the arrogance and the pride to think that not only were their ideas right, but anyway, I'm rambling now, but there's a lot of people, and myself included, because I've made these mistakes, but I think there's a humility needed now more than ever that, and again, people of all political parties, but certainly if you're trying to challenge the system, we need to be just cognizant and have a lot of self-awareness in terms of who we are and where we're coming from.
So you're saying I shouldn't run against Cindy Axne then?
As under what party?
I was thinking about running as a libertarian because she only, not to beat anybody, but because she won by 2 points.
So what are you hoping to accomplish?
At least to cover the spread.
Of what? And then what? You can claim that you cost someone the election, or
give it to the Republicans at least.
You think it would?
Yeah, maybe. She only won by 2 points.
Yeah, I haven't studied the district enough. I guess it depends on who's the Republican on the ballot.
Yeah, that would be a big.
Well, for me, and I say this, like, I have a very Iowa-centric view, and one of the truths is all politics is local.
Sure.
And so I have a hard time even like viewing the federal government as like legitimate. Like, I don't know, I'm just trying to tune them out. And I see the way that they treat sitting members of U.S. Congress, making them wear masks, making them go through metal detectors. It's humiliating. It's degrading. Right. I mean, yeah, it's a nice pay and you get a nice office and get a higher staff. But, and I guess this is the political science question, is what would be more impactful? Where would you have a larger influence on public policy that affects you and your family? Would it be as a sitting member of U.S. Congress? No. Or would it be as a local city councilman or a state representative? So I think that's the big question we all have to ask ourselves, because clearly we have limited time and resources. Where is the biggest bang for our bucks? Where can we put our money, which is limited, and make sure we're getting the biggest return on investment from our limited political resources? So those are very, very important questions. And even one of the most important things I have to decide in my position is which fights am I going to take? Like I said, I cover a dozen different issues that to me are all considered life or death. How do I pick the 2 that are most important, that I can actually try to move the needle a little bit as one voice out of 100, trying to, again, steer the destiny, steer the imagination, the vision, the politics of an entire state of 3.1 million people? How do I, as one person, leverage myself to influence that much larger body of people? That's what we have to figure out.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And I'm a big proponent of running local, because those are the people who can fine you if your grass gets too long. Or you park a Winnebago in front of your house, or you know what I mean?
Well, or they're spending your local property tax dollars in a lot of instances. We've seen how powerful school boards are in making decisions. In terms of government services that people actually rely on and could hypothetically be considered essential, many, many millions of people rely on the public school system. Now, thankfully, I believe your family's in a position where you're not dependent on that because you had some foresight and some wisdom about you. But there are a lot of people right now that are trapped in really terrible school board settings or public school systems. Who's going to solve that problem? See, that's the thing. I mean, view public service as what is the need of society that I'm responding to? What is the problem I'm solving? And then let that guide your. But certainly for the lives of Iowans, I know that their lives were much greater impacted by the president of the school board than by their U.S. congressperson.
Sure.
So, anyway.
Yeah, well, and you've done a lot of work in the state, and somebody actually brought this up. Lo-Fi Republican, thank you so much for your super chat. He said Jeff's mushroom hearings should be in textbooks. and so that is something that you're a big proponent of.
Cool.
Decriminalizing psilocybin.
Well, and that's probably the best speech I ever gave too. Was the genuine health and healing speech at the end of. So basically, what happened was I get back to the Capitol in June of 2020, and obviously I freak out because I'm witnessing my country capitulate to communism. And so I go off like a loose cannon, and it was like for 10 straight days, there's just one controversy after another. And then to put a bow on it all, I end with an extremely uplifting speech on decriminalizing psilocybin. And I had more Republican votes on that amendment than it was 9-8. So I had 8 Republicans and 8 Democrats with me. I'm a Republican, so 9 Republicans. But it was like the most beautiful thing where like the week before I was like the most controversial person, calling all these people out for crimes against humanity, mocking people for mocking the Democrats for wearing masks and stuff. And then afterwards I was able to get because it was like the far right Christian conservative. Skylar Wheeler was on that, the most conservative member, gay bashing Republican. And then it was Beth Wessel-Krishel, the progressive Democrat that basically gave Iowa gay marriage. They were both with me on the psilocybin. I had the inner city black legislators, Akeo and Ross Smith. And then I had, your typical kind of Phil Thompson. So it was like a wonderful eclectic mix of everyone across the political spectrum. 17 votes against 76. So 1776 was the vote, 17-76. And so that was probably, I would say, my most joyful or most meaningful political achievement was just showing that, wow, like to all observers was like, what issue would get Skylar Wheeler and Beth Wessel-Krishel and Ted Gassman to vote all together? Oh, Shipley's mushroom thing. How the heck did that happen? And it's still, like, as far as, like, again, for textbook, like the political textbook should study, how did this outcome come to be? So, yes, I was very pleased with that. And I'll even put it a little further. Back in the day, I was listening to Joe Rogan and Joey Diaz on the podcast. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what can I do? What could I do as a person that could somehow be considered cool enough to hang out with these awesome comedians? And it was like, oh, I could rep the psilocybin issue. I could be the guy that introduces that in the State House. And then it really is. If you think of like the 3.1 million Iowans, who possibly would have been in a better position to introduce the psilocybin? I was like the only, like, that's the thing. What is your unique purpose? What can you bring to the world that no one else can? And for someone like Top Lobster, it's pretty easy. No one can make art like that.
No,
so every time he makes an art piece, he's enriching the world because he's tapping into himself from that unique, divinely inspired, that, hey, God put you on this earth for this specific reason because there's a task that only you can do. And so for me, that was the mushroom bill. And that's what propelled me to when I'm in the middle of a campaign and I was like, oh, this is terrible. Why am I doing this? Nobody cares. I want to quit. Is because, I remembered how awesome mushrooms are, and I wanted to share that health and that healing with as many people as possible. So anyway, I'm getting a little emotional there, but that shows you if you care about something, that's what drives. Because that's the thing, it's not so much what you know, it's how much do you care? What are you willing to do to act on that belief? And if I didn't have that, carrot to dangle in front of myself, because again, I won my election by very, very slim margin. And on those days, the last couple weeks of the campaign, where every door knock, like, well, not everyone, but it's like it's a grind for people who've gone through the campaign process, and even in the political textbooks, they'll talk about this, that like most campaign staffers would rather have like their candidate lose and the election be over than to work another week on the campaign for a chance of winning. Like, that's just how tired everyone is. Candidates, campaign staff, voters, everyone is just so exhausted by that first week of November. And so you really need that internal motivation, that reason of why are you here? And so for me, that was mushrooms. Well, now it's the vaccine issue, school choice. But we all need that. We all need to know what is our unique purpose. How can we bring that into the world? And then how do we, make sure, because that's what I see, this like war. I don't really care about politics so much. It's just like human willpower. What are you willing to do? And like, that's the only language that speaks to me, is like, because everyone talks, right? I mean, your podcast is great, but let's be honest. I mean, you have a really kind of niche audience. You're fulfilling a specific marketplace, but there's a lot of libertarian content online. We have a lot of people talking. We have really good ideas that we've beat to death. What are we going to do about it? What is the initiative we can take to make a more meaningful impact in the world we live in?
Sure.
So that's my high horse. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's great. It's a great issue, and now you talked a little bit about school choice and the vaccine issue. Now I know that every legislative season there's some Democrat that tries to attack school choice in Iowa. Correct?
So right now, I think the best thing as far as our school laws, we have really great homeschooling laws. That came about, I think, in 2013, where we have independent private instruction where you can homeschool your kid, and the government, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to give the school district a piece of paper or whatever. And yeah, Democrats hate that. And they think homeschooling is dangerous. They literally think that parents being on their own with their children without state supervision is a threat to society or detrimental to the child or that public health, whatever the crazy things they say.
Right.
And because that's the thing, it's anyway, but yeah, they would love to take that away. And I'm sure that would be very high on their agenda if they ever were to, be back in power.
Sure. So now recently, Kim Reynolds came out, the governor of Iowa came out and said that she would use legislative action or executive force to make sure that we don't have to worry about COVID passports here.
Oh yeah, okay.
How do you think that works around the legislators?
Well, which part of that?
I mean, it's more Republican state legislators than Democrats here. So
on the COVID vaccine issue?
Yeah. How do you think they fall on that here?
Well, so we passed the bill.
For the vaccine passports?
Yeah, so we did pass a prohibition against vaccine passports. The controversy is that it excluded healthcare facilities. And then the position I ended up on is that, because this is the thing, you look at the code book and just and this is the thing, lawmakers are generally incompetent, and writing the law is actually really, really difficult because, again, this is where we go to natural law. What should the law say? Obviously, we know that the more corrupt the state, the more it legislates. We've known that since the Roman Republic. We know that the government that governs best governs least, or whatever that saying is. So you get these thick code books where these legislators keep adding on these ridiculous things, and instead of just having like a Bill of Rights that covers everything, we have these big, big, long code books. So the whole vaccine passport issue, it was great because they recognized, well, one, it was great because people were rejecting this thing. And it's clear that this kind of immunity passport, or this paradigm of everyone being a lurking biological contagion, so we all have to live in fear and be afraid of one another, it's clear to me that that's a part of this globalist New World Order agenda that will usher in a totalitarian system, the likes of which we've never seen. And of course, God forbid, we haven't even started discussing what, the actual physiological impact of these vaccines may or may not be. But yeah, so the concept of vaccine passport was dead on arrival. It was amazing that so many people as soon as started pushing this in the media, people were like, no, we're not going along with it. And so the governor, DeSantis was the first, clearly. So DeSantis was the big leader, and then the other red state style governors kind of followed in quickly behind. And so anyway, so we have a bill, and I'm dealing with this at home because I have a private college in my district that has gone very far left on COVID policy, and it's extraordinarily sad. Thankfully, a lot of people agree with me on the issue, and thankfully, because of their actions, it's driven more people to recognize how important it is to have elected leaders like me. So I hate to say it that way, but that's a nature of politics. Politics is very reactive, and most people just are reacting to whatever the latest thing is that upsets them. So yes, I'm the political beneficiary of the Maharishi University taking very draconian COVID measures. And this is the thing. So the law says they cannot require someone show proof of immunity or proof of vaccination. And so what my university is doing is, they're not requiring it, but they're asking. So they're going as far as they can without actually violating the law. The punishment of violating the law is they forfeit any sort of state funding or state contract. Sorry,
this is a wonderful dog. You're just a great.
Just put him in his place. He's
You're
good.
a good puppy.
He's been excited to be with you. He loves the spirit of freedom, and he's been following your work. He's just really excited.
Awesome. Thanks, Pickles.
So anyway, but this is the thing, is we passed this law and it's stupid and the definitions are poor. So I was on the House floor arguing. This is the biggest political fight I've ever done, is I had to argue against my whole entire caucus for 2.5 hours. And it was extremely difficult, and everyone's telling you how stupid you are and you're hurting your own cause. But I know I'm right because I've studied the Supreme Court cases, and I've studied the issue, and I talked to the activists who are telling me to do this. So yeah, it was a very big political confrontation. Our video of that House debate got censored off YouTube.
Oh wow, really?
For a day. Then they kind of apologized. But this is the thing: when you look at some of the other remarks that some of the other legislators said, like, there are people who are spreading dangerous health information that probably needs to be corrected and fact-checked. So I was just giving YouTube the benefit of the doubt because, yeah, if some people are believing what some of these other politicians are saying, it could be really detrimental to public health. Sure. But so, yeah, that was a big thing. So thankfully, but it's still a very murky legal area. And now the big area is employees' rights. So that was another big failure of our vaccine passport bill, is it did not impact the employer-employee relationship, which is where the most stress is on these issues. And we just had a really great friend is relocating to Arizona, partially because of policies of the Archer Daniels Midland, where they're still requiring people to test. And they want people who haven't vaccinated to wear a mask, and it's very, there's a lot of undefined legal questions. So on the legal question of, can someone require you to take a vaccine in order to keep or get a job, the straight answer is yes. But if someone says, oh, well, I can't take that because I have a medical or religious reason not to, then the answer becomes it depends.
Right.
And so you have all these very undefined legal areas that need to be very fiercely litigated, and it makes it very difficult because there was even the federal EEC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They put out guidance on this. And this is the thing, they're not a lawmaking body, they're not a policy body, but they offer guidance on what the law might say. And then there was a judge in this court in Texas at this Methodist case where they were requiring the COVID jab for nurses. He ruled against the EEOC guidance. So that's the thing. The federal government issues this big thing, and then it can go to a judge, and the judge can just ignore it.
Right.
So a lot of people don't understand exactly how complicated the legal and judicial system is, and how a lot of lawmaking is driven from lawsuits in the courts.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I work in data centers, critical facilities, and there's some really big critical facilities around here, including Facebook. And Amazon and Microsoft, and thankfully I work at a place now that they don't care what you do at all, But Microsoft is actually asking and requiring their employees to get the vaccine, which I thought was really crazy. Which is also somewhere that if they close my site, which is something that we've talked about in the next 2 years, because nobody works there anymore, everyone works at home now. That's probably where I'd have to go, and I'm like, oh, I'm not, I don't want to do that, and but you guys also passed you banned the mask mandate
for schools. So this is an interesting thing. So a lot of people, this is interesting. So we won. Iowa Republicans did really well in the election, and then in that second week of November, when you look at the hospitalization curve, there did look like there was a spike of hospitalizations related to COVID. That if it continued to climb, and again, this is the other thing too about the stress in the healthcare system, is a lot of the stress wasn't necessarily related to hospital beds per se, but nursing staff. And that's where Iowa does have critical workforce shortages, where I had a restaurant close down in Fairfield, a beloved restaurant that everyone loves, and they had to close down because they couldn't staff it. So this is like the huge demographic problem in Iowa, is that we have too many jobs, and healthcare professionals are in very, very high demand. So there was a time when there was a spike in, we had a big illness last winter before Thanksgiving, and so the governor issued a mask mandate. But it was interesting because I remember like my knee-jerk response was like, ugh, I can't believe she did this. I feel so betrayed. I remember I felt betrayed because we had just won the election. And but then when I read the thing, I chuckled because it was virtually unenforceable. And the way the thing was written, it wouldn't have applied to me because there was religious and medical exemptions. There was exercise exemptions. There was the mask mandate was only in effect if you were within the vicinity of someone within 6 feet for longer than and Governor Reynolds herself said it was unenforceable. They're like, yeah, we don't want to devote law enforcement being the mask police. That's nobody wants that job. We're not going to give them that job because nobody wants it. And so she did have a mask mandate for a few months, but it was interesting that when you peel it back and read it, it's like, okay, how is this going to be enforced? Which is another very interesting thing about the laws, the vaccine passport law included, is how are these things enforced? So then but then after that, so then in February, our governor released all the restrictions. We're still in a state of emergency, but the restrictive part of it has been gone since February. And then you still had school boards and local governments trying to enforce a mask mandate, which was arguably illegal from the get-go. The Attorney General issued an opinion in April of 2020 describing how the law centers all emergency powers in the governor's office, and you're not allowed to do anything more strict than what the governor is. But then the cities were still trying to do it anyway. And then the schools were the most important one because, as we already mentioned, the schools is where the state really does have, and where the teachers unions in certain parts of the country are literally holding the children hostage. So the schools was the big issue, specifically because you had children that, again, what is the reasonable accommodation that a school district can make to a child who has a medical condition that can't wear a mask? So that's a legitimate issue that was causing a lot of problems. The other thing was school boards were issuing criteria that said, okay, we'll release the mask mandate once the rolling positivity average is below this level. Then they'd meet that metric and they'd keep the mask mandate in place. So all these things required state intervention to override these local authorities. And we said that, no, we're not going to. And the other thing was Dr. Fauci made some stupid comment. Oh, maybe masks will just be a permanent thing from now on. And that really, I think, got the lawmakers to act like, no, that's not a thing that's acceptable. But I do know, I wasn't involved in the drafting of that, but what I did hear is it started as a much more mild proposal. And then my theory is that all the anger and upset that we caused on the vaccine passport issue, that shifted the mask discussion to get much more comprehensive and much more forceful vis-a-vis those local governments. So it's interesting that just by being involved on one issue, you can move the needle positively on the other, because by the end of session, there was crowds of hundreds of people very angry, and the lawmakers had to find a way to give them a bone.
Sure.
And so that's my theory on how that happened, is by causing so much ruckus over the vaccine passport issue, we were able to get a much better outcome. And again, and it was really significant because that's something where the state of Florida at that point hadn't done it. That there were still kids in Florida that were not in-person learning and having to wear masks in school. And in Iowa, we had 100% in-person learning for those who wanted it. And there was no mask mandate. There was no mask requirement in public schools, which is extremely significant because the children, I think, have really been hit hardest by this, and just how malleable human behavior and psychology is, that habits die hard. And that's been the interesting thing, to see how everyone's adjusted to this pandemic.
Right. And
some people are really buying into the new normal of, oh, I'm not taking my mask off. Now, I think some of that's softened a little bit, but it's just interesting social expectations on something like, does society expect you to wear a mask in this setting? And thankfully in Iowa, we said, no, we're done with that.
Right.
And
well, it's been weird for me because, we had this Hy-Vee up here in Urbandale. We have a Hy-Vee, and we go there a lot. And so, like, when it was really, everybody was all worried, I was the only one in there without a mask every time I went in there. Now, every time I go in there, there's one person with a mask on. It's completely flopped. but we only had 33 new cases the other day for
Sure.
the whole state. So it's pretty crazy to think about. Like we've laxed that mask mandate, and now that the cases are dropping.
Well, I just wanted to point out Hy-Vee. So the other thing Hy-Vee did was significant was and I don't know the full story on this. They didn't comment publicly, but the rumor was that Hy-Vee decided not to institute a mask mandate on their stores because their employees voted on it, because they're an employee-owned company.
Sure.
The rumor was they put that to their employees to vote, and I reached out and they wouldn't comment to me on it. But that was a rumor circulating, which, I mean, that just shows us that's a democratic outcome. That thankfully they chose that. But in my hometown, the other grocery store went full woke. They've had I think they still probably have transgender flags up, Black Lives Matter flag. They had a cardboard cutout of Joe Biden. They were super heavy masks. They would kick people out of the store. So like in my town, like the grocery store, people, because this is a grocery store they went to for like, imagine you go to a grocery store for 20 years. You love it. You've gotten your nourishment there all the time. You love the people. You love the staff. And then all of a sudden they don't want you in because they think you're spreading disease and that that you're not. And like it's hard on people. And so if we didn't have Hy-Vee, like respecting that personal freedom, like I'm just so thankful that they made that decision. And again, it just goes to show you, like, the what people do every day, the grocery stores in their community, like that's where political decisions like really have a lot of impact and really affect people's lives on a daily basis or a weekly basis, whatever it is. So anyway, I love Hy-Vee, and thank you.
Yeah, I like Hy-Vee too. And our Hy-Vee is like high class, man. It's got like a dry cleaner
They've done a good
in
job
it.
in
Yeah,
there,
it's nice.
Yeah, they pumped them up.
Yeah, they're really nice. So let's get away from the COVID thing. Another really great speech that I saw you give was on CRT in schools.
Yeah.
I've had a couple people on the show talk about CRT. In fact, I had a organizational psychologist named Carlin Borisenko from New Hampshire, who is very, very controversial because she swears it's not an anti-white thing and it gets mad at anybody who says that.
Right.
But she's also very anti-CRT at the same time.
Okay.
She says it's racist to all people, not just whites. And so
Interesting.
if you say it's an anti-white thing, she gets really upset. But we had a good conversation about it. So you gave this great speech. You want to elaborate on that? Yeah, it was good. It was one of the better ones for sure.
Yeah, so it was. Now thinking back, I wish, because that's what I'm trying to find this tone is like I don't want to come across as like just a middle class white guy, right? And this is what I've learned is when you're speaking as a politician, you're speaking to everyone no matter what, which is very tough because I very much want to speak to just my niche audience, right? Like I would love if I could just talk to the medical freedom women and that's it. Like that would be really easy because I could say everything 100%, full force, whatever. So it's a very controversial issue. And I think the other important thing, and I think this is why the communists are so successful, is because they latch on to legitimate grievances. They just kind of offer an explanation or a remedy to those grievances that I think create more and more grievances and create a vicious cycle rather than solve the problem. So we really do have to, I think what Jordan Peterson says, and that's probably, to be honest, how I prepared for that speech was just go back and watch some Jordan Peterson lectures, pick out a couple talking points, make them your own. Boom, you got a 10-minute lecture inspired by the greatest psychologist in North America. So again, for anyone watching, that's a great shortcut. If you're speaking on a political topic, find someone and just kind of replicate it and make it your own and save yourself a lot of time. So the action we did, the bill, basically it just says you can't be racist. It lists 10 divisive... We never use the term critical race theory because it's another thing why it's become... like when the left pushes back on this, it's become one of those buzz phrases that means different things to different people. So like a definition of critical race theory, it is kind of hard to pin down. But the bill, it lists 10 divisive topics and basically says those can't be involved in any sort of state mandated trainings or curriculum. And yeah, it's just, I mean, so many places to go, but it's just interesting because it's clear to me that there's a divide and conquer strategy where they want white versus black, black versus white. They want racial tension, and CRT seems to represent this. But there are instances where, yeah, we need a lot of room for improvement. And when I visit the prisons in Iowa, they're filled with overwhelmingly black men, and the prisons are not designed to rehabilitate people. They're not honoring human dignity. So, I mean, we can point to legitimate things that need to be fixed. But basically, I just wanted to challenge the notion of white privilege. So that was the thing that stuck out in the speech is I just said that that yeah, if you're this whole term white privilege is judging me based on the color of my skin, that doesn't feel good. And then I talked for a lot longer, but yeah, I think that's been the most rewarding part of being in the legislature, and probably being one of my strengths is I'm able to articulate these concepts. And that's honestly why I decided to run for office, is because I was writing jokes, but I would lose focus. And instead of trying to write jokes for my open mic, I started daydreaming about talking about political topics in a way that could bring people together. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to like disarm the other side by like Jordan Peterson says, give the devil their due, acknowledge that what they're talking about are serious issues, that there are things that need to be worked on, but then just state my truth plainly that yeah, I do think it's racist when you say that I'm something, when you judge me solely on my white skin, whether you're saying I'm privileged or racist or whatever. So anyway, the bill does a great job. It'll be very interesting to see how it's applied, because it seems that they're already going to try to push back and just do it anyway, or find these technical, like on the mask thing, the technicality that they found was, oh, well, the school buses are governed by the federal rules, so you have to wear a mask on the school bus. And that's how you know you're being successful, is when the other side is consistently just resorting to find technicalities to circumvent. Which is why I'm a Republican, because I can say the Republican Party delivered on these issues that are tangibly improving people's lives, that I can send my kid to public school and know that there's a much less chance of them being indoctrinated in racism because the state took action against critical race theory or divisive topics. I don't know, is that kind of what you're hoping to hear?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I talked to Dr. Carlin Borisenko, sure, her thing was that, yeah, there's this anti-white element, but also it's telling, black kids that they can't ever be anything because of these issues.
Yeah.
And so, I understood her take on it.
Well, it's a crisis of identity, and this affects everything. Is who are you as a human being? Who are you? How do you define yourself? And that's why even I'll get kind of prickly when I hear people like, oh, I'm a libertarian, I'm an anarchist. Like when you say I am, and whatever comes after that, it's so crucial, because people get so wrapped up in their identities. And I think we've seen that with some of the people that you've taken out, where this label of being a part or having this position in the party, that was the most important thing to them, that defined their life. Thankfully, I've never, yeah, I'm a Republican, but I'm so much more than that. If I wasn't a Republican, I would still be a very full, put together human being. Now, I see this all the time. It's interesting how politics tend to attract personality, but there are definitely people who are local activists that if you took away their Republican position or their Democrat position, they would have an identity crisis. Sure. Because they use that as a crutch to determine who they are. And that's what I think we really need to step away from. And why that's my big problem with critical race theory is you're not seeing someone as an individual, as a child of God, as an individual with infinite potential to love and to experience joy or whatever. You're seeing them as, oh, you're just a white person, you're just a cisgender, you're a transgender. And it's no, I'm none of those things. I'm a human being. And that's so much more all-encompassing, because I think that's what we're doing in this age of ignorance, is we sell ourselves short at every opportunity. We're sloppy with our words. We don't know how to think properly. Our minds don't work right. We're all mentally ill in our own ways. And then again, we just are so lacking in how we define ourselves. And as Jordan Peterson tells us, the way we define ourselves is going to necessarily impact every single interaction we have with the world.
Sure.
So that's really what we need to be instructing, is the opposite of that. Yeah, you are black, you are this, but you're so much more. And so I don't know whatever the opposite of critical race theory would be. Maybe just radical love and acceptance. I mean, I don't know but whatever the opposite is, we should teach that.
I agree fully. I usually have Dr. Peterson's book up here, but my fiance Julia took it up to my 16-year-old. She's like, you need to read this.
Dude, that's yeah, your fiance is really impressive. That's probably, well, one, I only met you through her, first off.
Sure, yeah.
And that's how I knew you were someone worth talking to, because you seem to have this just wonderfully beautiful, awesome wife, and you managed to somehow keep her happy. And I think that's what...
I don't know how.
That's the quality of a man. And anyways, that's why I was so eager to get on your show, because that's what I'm looking for, right? Is who are you? What have you done? And being able to maintain that, that's the thing. All these libertarian guys, I don't care what they think. Show me the hot chick. I want to know what I want to know what she thinks, because that's who I'm trying to impress, right? Like,
Sure.
So anyway.
Well, it's funny. Earlier when we were out on the deck, you were talking about this man and woman kind of vibe thing. You want to elaborate on that? It was good.
Well, like, okay, what year were you born? 83?
83, yeah.
I was right. That was a guess. I was right though.
Yeah. Getting old.
Yeah, they're starting to show, but you got some scars on you. Yeah. How much you smoke?
Way too much.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're gonna quit soon.
Well,
guys.
so that was the thing to me. I was going with my wellness coach, and she's like, Jeff, just promise me you never get Botox. I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, I see some wrinkles starting to form in your face. So I have one of those rose quartz tools now. I'm like ironing out my face wrinkles. Anyway, that's what I get from hanging out with chicks. They try to make me look pretty.
Yeah.
And so no, there is, and I noticed it too when I started going to libertarian events and Young Americans for Liberty, and certainly when I was an activist in college campus, it definitely slanted towards the male side of things, and obviously males. And that was what I saw you and Dave Smith joking about it, and I get it. Like, it is a funny joke, but at the end of the day, it's like not that funny, and it really does indicate a serious deficiency because women are half the population or more.
Sure.
And they really are influential. Now, I have a Cherokee lineage. I'm more Cherokee than Elizabeth Warren, but less Cherokee than an actual Cherokee. But it was like 7 generations ago. So I've been very interested in my Cherokee ancestry and in my research, which means like I probably read 3 articles online a few years ago or whatever. But this concept of like a matriarchal society and having the proper gender roles in their right place. And so men are really good at this kind of protect and provide role. But obviously women are competent at leading domestic affairs. And then when we look at, say, the collective domestic, so in the Cherokee society, it was much more matriarchal, where women were leading and making decisions in that society. And so I've always been impressed with that. And my political success has been largely due to women. Very significant contributions to my success have come from women. And I've noticed that discrepancy, and it's a problem. It's a problem for a lot of reasons. One is because you get to one of these libertarian events, and there's the one hot chick that everyone creeps on, and then she feels uncomfortable because she's in a room full of creeps.
Yeah.
So the kind of self-awareness of, and I deal with this, like, because I do community brunches, so I serve brunch to 50 people every week in my town. And I have the same kind of vibe where we have a lot of radical visionaries, a lot of square pegs and round holes, a lot of people that are a little bit antisocial, that have been on the fringes, that have a lot of great ideas but might not know how to communicate them. And there are a lot of socially awkward things that can, even on a subtle level, make someone uncomfortable. So, and that's where, like, the skills of being a politician, like my skills are basically just talking to people. I mean, being able to go to someone's doorstep, knock on their door, and within 5 minutes, like, ask, hey, what are your biggest concerns and issues? How are the kids doing? What does your retirement look like? Being able to build rapport quickly to where someone will trust you to revealing, like, oh, well, actually, the political issue I really care about is whatever it is. And a lot of time, like, whatever it could be, but like things that are personal, you have to have a rapport with someone to really get to that level. And it's not easy, and for some people it's incredibly difficult because they're awkward or autistic or whatever you guys call it. But
in the libertarian circle, it's autistic.
Yeah, and there is a tendency, like, to drive people away and go off on really obscure tangents that have no bearing. So that's a challenge I'm actively solving, because I recognize that if I have the young women involved, then the young men will follow. And if we have young women and young men, then before we know it, we'll have young families. And if we have young families, then we have people that are literally invested in the next 20 years of a community, right? Because that's the other big thing, too, about how time is such an important thing and how long-term relationships really are what govern. Because the status quo is really just the existing configuration of long-term relationships. And we have to be a part of that. And it's going to be, hopefully, young families are going to be the ones that have enough of a vested interest that, yeah, I care about the future of this community to get involved in city council and vote and do those things. But if I'm trying to attract young women, but I got these, 50 or 60-year-old old men that might not be outwardly horny, but are probably thinking some dirty thoughts inside their heads, like, that's going to resonate. That energy is going to be in the room. And even just like, sultry glances or whatever it is, like, people can pick up on people who are sensitive pick up on that energy, and you need to create a space that's very warm and welcoming for everyone. So again, my success, and I've seen it from my Facebook statistics, And yeah, I've been able to connect with a demographic of women, and I've been able to connect with issues that women really care about, and that's very important because when we talk about, at least in Iowa or nationally, a big demographic of swing voters are suburban women, women like your wife, 30 to 49, typically with children, who have kind of gone back and forth between Republican and Democrat, and those are bellwether voters that are highly sought after. So as a political entrepreneur, crafting a message that I can go to the suburbs and get a lot of suburban women on board, that's going to be immensely valuable. And I think I've demonstrated a little bit of success with that hopefully I can scale up. So
sure, yeah, absolutely. And so earlier we talked a little bit about like the entertainment aspect as well of politics and being more entertaining and bringing more people to your cause through that. And I mean, you're probably one of the most entertaining politicians that I've ever met. But that's because you do have this side of you that's not like a normal politician side. You're very spiritual. You make sauerkraut, you go out into the forest and do peaceful hippie things, and you like mushrooms, and it's not normal GOP like Republican act. You are entertaining.
Well, as a Ron Paul Republican, this is the Ron Paul revolution, and this is the thing. We are the new GOP. Like I'm telling, like I get, like when I have 8 other Republicans, the young Republicans, including very senior committee chairs like Bobby Kaufman, voting in favor of my psilocybin bill and like congratulating, like, yeah, we got to get this done, keep working on it. That shows that we are taking over the GOP, and that is some fertile soil there. The entertainment. Well, because politics is very boring, and I think another thing that people don't realize, the power of imagination and attention. Because attention truly is the most valuable currency you have in a lot of ways. And what you pay attention to grows in power. Because what you pay attention to is going to govern your life, etc. And I remember one time I was door knocking, or I was talking to some guy, and some of this idea of like, oh, I really want to see world peace. Oh, no, I was on a sales call. That was it. I was talking about I was making jokes about world peace. And he was like, oh, that'll never happen. So in this guy's mind, he couldn't even imagine a thought. Think how easy it is to imagine. You can imagine anything you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not hard. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't even imagine, or wasn't willing to even imagine, all countries coming together and uniting in peace. Like that. And if you can't imagine it, it's not going to happen. And this is there was a book called Psycho-Cybernetics that was given to me by Kirk Shelley, who's a longtime political activist. That if any political activist should know Kirk. It was Psycho-Cybernetics. It was written by a cosmetic surgeon in like the 1950s, back when cosmetic surgery was like much more legit in terms of like fixing facial deformities and stuff. And he would notice he would remove like a minor defect from someone. Like let's say someone may have like a mole on their face that maybe was mild and not that bad. And he would remove something, and then it would result in a lasting personality change. And so he kind of pioneered this literature on like how you view yourself is so significant, and then further how like you imagine yourself. So they would run tests that like practicing shooting 3 throws on the court is like almost as equal to you in detail imagining you going through and like imagining yourself shooting a free throw, or imagining yourself giving a speech. Like myself imagining giving a speech and what I'm going to say is like just as beneficial, it's been shown, as me literally reciting it into the mirror or something. Same thing with like a piano. If you just imagine yourself hitting the right keys. So like even a lot of athletes will talk about this. They imagine themselves winning the championship, or they imagine themselves connecting with that long ball Hail Mary or something. Like they're able to see it in their mind before it happens. And that's what kind of greases the wheels for reality to bring it forth. So we need to really be harnessing the power of our imagination, and then power coming from attention. We need to harness the attention of the collective. We need as many people paying attention and then like buying into whatever our narrative is. I need as many people paying attention to my legislative initiatives and saying, yeah, that's something I want. And that's a huge challenge, because there's a huge disconnect to, okay, I introduce a bill and very hard to keep track of what's happening at the State House. It's hard enough for me working there every day. So I imagine how hard it is for someone who is less familiar with the process and has an actual job. But if everyone could, if I had 10,000 people across the state imagining and paying their attention to the decriminalization of psilocybin mushrooms, or the liberalization of our state's marijuana laws, or just, all the mothers imagining sending their kids to school and their kids being met with the most wholesome, locally grown, organic, nutritious food. Like, if we can hold those thoughts in our head and like revisit them, that's what it's going to take to actually bring it forth in reality. And there's been a lot, like even the book, have you read like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill?
I have not read that. No.
You heard people talk about it?
Yeah.
So that's like a big thing. And that was like, he pioneered that. That was in the Great Depression. But the power of imagination, and then letting people, and that's why Donald Trump was so successful. Like, he would talk about, this building's going to be the most beautiful building. It's going to be the greatest building, the most wonderful, luxurious building ever put forward. So he's painting this picture to paint a picture in people's imaginations. And then he's being very boastful and ostentatious to attract people's vision, attract people's attention to his vision. And that's how he was able to, take over the real estate market, was harnessing people's collective attention and letting them buy in on the same vision. And same thing with Make America Great Again. Oh, I can imagine America being great. Okay, dude, I was at the 4th of July parade in Bloomfield, and the number of people that are still waving Trump 2020 flags and Trump 2024 flags, the way that Trump was able to brand himself synonymously with American exceptionalism, like, that's super impressive that these people, when they're waving a Trump flag, that's their version of loving America, the country that's so important, is like personified. Like, and again, that was just branding. That was marketing. That was done by building a vision, getting people to pay attention to it and buy into it. So, like, that's the kind of subtle marketing sales thing that, Ron Paul was able to do it spontaneously, just of being. But, that's what we need to do, is we need to be able, and that's why I call myself an artist, and why when I'm in the State House, I just view that whole chamber as my canvas, and I view my words and my bills as like my brush strokes. Like, that's literally how I see it. Like, I'm painting a picture that hopefully is beautiful enough for the people of Iowa.
Yep. Absolutely. We got some super chats.
Cool.
Shout out to Drywall Zero. He said, wiener dog food.
Grass-fed beef.
Nice, smart. Level Zero says CRT is going to be hard to get out of schools. Lefty teachers love to feel like they're being subversive. I see what is on the walls and classrooms.
Yeah.
And that was someone was going to bring up here.
They're defying it.
Yeah, they're completely defying the ban on it, right?
Well, and that's the thing. I need to get down in the weeds, because it's just interesting, because that's the thing. What is critical race theory? And that's the other thing, too, is like we were not outlawing discussions of race or the Tulsa riots or slavery. We're just saying it can't be taught as official curriculum. It cannot be taught as official curriculum that all white people are racist. So when you actually read the bill, it's actually beautiful. It's like, you cannot teach any instruction that it like judges someone inherently based on race alone. Like, it's literally astonishing that we basically paraphrased Martin Luther King and put it into Iowa code, and the liberals are freaking out. But it does nothing. It's like, we're not going to be able to teach racism. Yeah, you could teach Rodney King, teach the Tulsa race riots, teach Malcolm X. I think every high school student should read Malcolm X. I think every person should know how terrible it was, or the Frederick Douglass story, or all these things. Like, very important to know this history. But just the idea of collective guilt is designed to skewer and schism society. So please don't.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the super sticker, Lo-Fi. So what's next for you, Jeff? What do you got going on, man?
I am spiritually, mentally, and physically exhausted. So I'm consulting with my homeopath. I gotta I thought my bad habits were disrupting my nervous system. And I think it was my disruptive nervous system that was causing my bad habits.
Sure.
So we had a really good consultation with a homeopath today, another very powerful woman. This is great. My other wellness coach, we kind of hit a plateau. She's like, yeah, I prayed about it. I don't think I can really work with you anymore. So she kind of let me go. And then she's like, well, I'm going to pray that another woman can, help you the way you need it or whatever. And then boom, like a month and a half later, I have this. She's like the godmother homeopath of my town, and just so brilliantly intuitive. And it's like so great at like just calling, I've been very forthright anyway, but just telling you anyway. So I got a new relationship with a homeopath. I'm going to get healthy, And we have a lot of events this summer. Local elections this fall. I think there's a lot on the ballot. Local elections are going to be critical. Local elections are low turnout affairs that gives one person an oversized ability to influence things. I want to get back into comedy. So the biggest thing that happened to me recently was Dr. Simone Gold, who made famous for being very heavily censored on hydroxychloroquine.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Oh God, I was so impressed, dude. These women just make my heart melt. I just want to like suck their toes or something. I just want to worship. I don't know. I want to respect and honor and just worship these women because I think they're so powerful and so needed. And so she's amazing and brilliant. I was so lucky I was able to speak at this event. This was the largest live audience I ever talked to, and I was so sick about what I was going to talk about. I was like about to vomit backstage. I stayed up all night before trying to draft out and rehearse some remarks. And while I'm driving to the event, I'm like, that's terrible. So I basically threw it out the window. And then I leaned hard into the comedy thing. So I really love making people laugh. And I really think comedy and laughter is powerful because now more than ever, we need to be experiencing joy. All this stuff is so gangbusters crazy. We need to laugh at it. Laughing at things disempower stuff. I think that's why Dave Smith is so powerful. Why if Dave Smith can just rehearse a couple real clean punchlines, I think he can really scale up his national profile. Ronald Reagan told a lot of jokes that were very endearing. So I want to get back into this comedy thing because I've been working on it and then I hadn't done it since the pandemic hit, and just because of the nature of because I used to tell a lot of jokes that kind of stopped becoming funny when I was like actually in elected office, that people had a lot harder time laughing at it because they took it a lot more seriously. But that's something I want to develop. I think that's probably where my skill set lies, and then just becoming much more fluent in the laws and hopefully being able to litigate some of these civil rights cases, some of these medical freedom cases, because there's like at least 10 or a dozen very, very highly contentious legal questions that need to be debated in front of the Supreme Court yesterday. Because that's the crazy thing about this whole lockdown. So none of this was really legal. All we really needed to do the whole time was just push back on it.
Sure.
But we just didn't, which is embarrassing. But now we're learning to, and now the whole world's... Now I think it's going to be the spiritual revival of America showing the nation what it really means to govern yourself and lead against and push back against these corporate overworld. What I see is this coming resurgence of true American exceptionalism, of nonviolent civil disobedience, of revolutionary thought and action, of health, freedom, and liberty, inspiring the whole entire world to push back against the pharmaceutical companies. So look forward to that. I think that's what's going to happen. Is that because right now America, I mean, all these other countries are still locked down.
Sure. They
really did that bait and switch of, take the vaccine. Oh, you took it. Oh, the new variant. We have to stay locked down. Although I guess Boris Johnson said July 19th for England. We'll see if they stick to that timetable.
Doubtful. They've said 3 different dates.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
I'm trying to get Lawrence, was from the guy who started the Reclaim Party over there. That's like really pushing back on all this stuff.
I haven't heard of that yet.
I'm trying to get him on the show. I emailed him the other day, so
cool.
that'd be really cool.
Oversee, get your international influence on.
Yeah. I had Zuby on too. Zuby's pretty cool.
Oh, I need to listen to that one. That's great.
He was really fun. I like Zuby a lot.
Yeah, you've done some great shows. I'm impressed. You've had some great guests and.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate the work you're doing.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. And that's the thing. We just need to connect more because there's so many things to do. But we truly are the silent majority, and we need to find ways to just coordinate more because, we got to get you at the State House. And
yeah, that's definitely on my radar.
Got to figure out a way to, use that Libertarian Party as a wedge to make sure both parties act better, make sure everyone act better. I think we should, because there are issues I do agree with Democrats on, and I have voted with Democrats on amendments before. And the qualified immunity thing was a big thing. So I spoke. You didn't see that speech?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Well, just thank God when I gave that speech, all the Democrats had just taken their masks off, so I was able to see them smiling as I just ripped the bill to shreds, and that was really sad. Because I didn't realize how emotional it was that everyone's wearing masks and how just the act of seeing people smiling was really meaningful. So that was another big highlight, was ripping into the Republicans and seeing the Democrats smile because the CDC had just reversed or changed their mask thing or whatever. But yeah, so there's infinite things to do. We need to find ways to take leadership. Leadership is just defined as responsibility. So find an area to take responsibility for, and you become a leader. So like Top Lobster is already the de facto leader of graphic design now because he took responsibility for it. And that's what I always said. Like when I was before I got into this position, when I was just walking around the neighborhood tripping on mushrooms, I would just pick up trash. And I just, appointed myself the trash captain in my community because, when you're on mushrooms, it really offends you to see litter on the ground.
Sure, yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And so little simple things like that just go, and it just takes a little bit of effort. And that's what's crazy. And that's why I love about Jordan Peterson. Like a little bit of effort taken daily or as a habit really goes a long way. And it can happen quickly. Like we can turn our society around by next week if we just set a really good example and show people what it means to be healthy, happy, and free. Because people are sheep. I'm a sheep. I'm just shepherded by Bobby Kennedy and Del Bigtree and Ron Paul. That's my shepherd. But I'm a sheep. And that's just human nature. We're social creatures and we follow the leader. And unfortunately, there's a lot of wolves, devouring. And I think that's for us as men is to stand up and to protect the innocence of the sheep. And make sure that the sheep are being led by righteous shepherds, depending on your theology, that might be Jesus Christ or whatever it is, but shepherded by truth or by love or by liberty versus all these the literal Fabian socialist wolves in sheep clothing that seem to be leading the people into some sort of genocidal culling. I don't know what's going to transhumanism, whatever. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm very scared.
Yeah. There's a lot of craziness going out there, and definitely, I'm about as anti-communist as they come. But it's like you see this society moving closer and closer every day.
Well, and then I just always realize too because I feel like I gave a speech in April on the vaccine passport issue where it really was like, oh, after I gave that speech, I was like, oh, now I understand how Hitler did it. It was like clear how people can be led and how the oration is so powerful. And it is scary, and how now I can see like why people would be attracted to that, and why like for the people who were already suffering from anxiety and depression, why the lockdowns were great for them, because it gave them permission to stay inside and do nothing. And so then, because now they have this public policy tool, lockdown, that supports them in their mental illness, they'll fight to keep it.
Sure.
That was when I first blew my lid. Well, I don't know if it was the first time, but it was one of the memorable times where I really recognized how serious and severe things were. Was I saw a young woman in town. She was complaining about some of the restrictions being lifted. And she's like, no, you can't take me off unemployment. You can't make me go back to work. And I was like, well, okay, you trusted the authorities when they shut things down. Can we trust them to open back up too?
Right.
She's like, I don't want to talk about this with you. And I was like, oh, okay, we're in real deep shit.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. No doubt about it. We got some more super chats. Shan Lee says, "Our Ron Paul Republican here watching what's been going on in the LP. Can tell you I'm more libertarian than most who are official members. Great pod, guys."
Well, and that's the thing too that I realized that, okay, like we have this kind of foothold, or I think the way I see it is like Ron Paul gave us a beachhead in the Republican Party, but again, when these issues come up, it still shows you the big gap that exists, and there are like a lot of the conventional older Republicans that aren't like us, but it's just so amazing, just these complicated political relationships, and then what actual political party is. I don't know. It is challenging navigating all the political relationships, and I can understand why a few terrible Republicans will drive people away or make people just throw out the whole party. But I mean, at a local level, when you get involved at the grassroots level, you'll find people that are very sympathetic and are probably like, that's how we became leaders. Like we were just right over time. Like we just became
consistent too.
Yeah, well, and just like, and that's the other thing on the black world is like nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
So like you're never gonna show up at the first meeting and like be like, oh wow, this guy's so smart, he's done all his research, let's follow him. But when you show up at like that third or fourth meeting and like, so it's clear like you're interested in learning more and helping out, and then you kind of speak from a, hey, this might help us better, or like you come from that position of like not being antagonistic but couching it as like a constructive criticism, like you'll go a lot farther. Like that book, did you ever read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence?
Yeah, that's one of the best.
That should be must reading for anyone, like
especially going into politics.
For politics, for sales, for life. I mean, I was so embarrassed by the time I read that. I was already in my late 20s, and my boss made me read it because I was failing at these basic human courtesies and these just basic tools of just social interaction, where we are social creatures. Humans depend on one another, and we need to learn how to get along with folks. Sure. And just step away from this, take my toys and go home attitude, which is basically what I see, again, across all the spectrum, but certainly in the libertarian, is a lot of just grown children who have this take their toys and go home mentality. Like, oh, fine, I'm not going to play with you. And it's pathetic. And because what we really need to do is we're building a new nation. We're building a real nation, and the real American nation built on freedom, built on liberty, built on the ultimate human destiny, on God's truth, whatever. And we need to it's a nation. It means we don't all need to agree, but we need to survive the winter,
Absolutely.
So anyway, it's a trip out there, man. Humans are freaking weirdos.
Oh yeah, we're the worst, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Lo-Fi Republican, thanks for the big $10 super chat. He said Delta variant isn't even that bad.
Oh yeah, give this guy some more money, dude. He's got all these kids he's feeding. It's very impressive, dude. He's keeping all these kids fed.
Jeff came over and had dinner with all 7 of our children tonight, and the fiance Julia as well. And so he got to see them all in person. It is a lot, man. It's a lot.
It's a lot of mouths to feed, and they're all very hungry, and they all have their unique needs, and you got to pay attention to them. It's tough out there. So if anyone's got an extra $100 for this guy,
or just become a channel member. That's the $6 a month, and you get all the cool custom hand-drawn emojis and badges, and you get to watch the exclusive content.
That sounds pretty dope.
It's worth it, man.
Yeah,
we have exclusive content with every show.
Sounds like a great deal.
Yeah. But he said Thomas Massey posted data on the Delta variant. And
I reposted that. So again, why my job is Thomas Massey had a great Twitter. I just downloaded the images, rephrased it, put it on my Facebook. And you just rip off. That's why they call it copy. Is if someone's doing something. Someone did everyone always challenges these figures though. Someone was on my Facebook saying, "Oh, those aren't the real India figures." I don't know, but it either way, there's a lot of fuckery afoot. And my line on the thing was, I just said, Dr. Fauci's like the boy who cried wolf while simultaneously bioengineering wolves.
No shit.
Yeah.
No shit. I got kicked off of Facebook back in October for
permanently.
Yeah, well, I just started a new account and haven't been kicked off yet, but I'd started like 4 new accounts, and
did you ever verify your driver's license with them?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
They still kicked you off?
I had my account for 11 years.
For what? Why did they kick you off?
So I dared to theorize that maybe this may have been let go from a lab in Wuhan.
Well, that's mainstream science now.
Now, yeah, but it wasn't in October.
So Facebook told me, they said, they're less likely to ban your account if you verified it. So the fact that's disturbing to me.
Yeah, I was verified. I verified as soon as they gave me the warning. I had to verify, but I had already verified several times anyways. But I had that account for 11 years.
So you're not you're on Facebook.
I got back on like 3 or 4 days ago, and they haven't kicked me off yet. But I had started like 2 or 3 other pages during my ban in the last 6 months or whatever. So it's been, about 6 or 8 months. 6 months. Oh, and every time I started a new one, within 6 hours they had taken it down.
Because you posted something, or because they knew it was
Just
you?
because they knew it was me. Isn't that creepy?
Dude, I almost want to talk to because I talked to the Facebook lobbyist about this because I was I knew it was coming. I've had constituents with this issue, and I was just trying to figure out what the policies were, and it was very complicated, and
Nobody knows them. That's the great thing about Facebook.
Well, they're making it up as they go along, basically.
Exactly.
And so that was the thing. So I went out to I got my video nipped off YouTube. And I was like, oh, well, upload it to us on Facebook. We won't take it down. And so that was the thing. They were just trying to tell me, I guess, what I wanted to hear. And that was one of the things they said. We're only banning accounts that are spoofed, which kind of, because I had a woman, she claimed she got kicked off Facebook just for things she was sending through Messenger and got without warning. And she did a business through her Facebook. She lost all her business contacts. So it was a big pain in the butt for her. But on her case, it sounded like, she had a duplicate profile, and it could maybe, they just deleted the wrong one. So I don't know. So again, how these Facebook, I've tried. This is what my job is. I have to talk to the Facebook lobbyists and figure out what their censorship policy is and argue for or against it, or make these complaints. So I need to get a better job at that. And we need to find a way to confront this issue. I was wanting to sue YouTube, but then they put my video back up. So I was like, well, okay.
Yeah, because you were actually like a political.
We were on the floor of the House debating a bill, but the city of Fairfield was debating.
Imagine?
They were debating their mask policy at a city council meeting, and that did get kicked off YouTube, and that was not reinstored. So that was something that I do want to see happen at the local level.
Imagine them kicking off House debate off YouTube. That's just insane to think about.
Well, then a city council meeting, but then it's even crazy, okay? Because censorship historically had been accompanied by an urgent and immediate danger, the fire. What person is looking at a video of a city council meeting, listening to two old guys voice their opinion on masks, and then deciding to change their behavior based on what they heard on YouTube, and then that behavior actually causing someone harm in real life?
Right.
That's quite a leap. So there's, in my opinion, no justification for that censorship, and that, again, it's one of the things the Supreme Court needs to get figured out. And of course, we know they're compromised or whatever, but I don't know. We need some justice here.
Sure.
More justice, less censorship.
More truth and justice.
Yeah,
That's the important
More
part.
Alex Jones, less Dr. Fauci.
Alex Jones has been right so many damn times.
Well, and he said that he was the canary in the coal mine. He said, "Oh, when they come after me, we're in real deep shit." And then they nipped him, dude, and all four at once. It was a coordinated attack.
Yeah, he was like the first. He was the first.
He was the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was just so funny. He said radical things about Sandy Hook. I was never an adamant listener of him. Yeah. I just listened to him back when I was in college, and I moved on to other things. But I had the things that he was so beat up upon, I had never heard him talk about. So I remember just being oh, Alex, and it was just very all confusing to me, and sad.
Yeah,
because he's a troubled guy. He needs love.
Someone needs to hug Alex Jones for sure.
Well, he's been down in Austin, Texas now, and he was a guest. And my favorite comedy podcast is Kill Tony, and he was on there, and he's just such a clown. But again, a very entertaining persona who captures your attention, captures your imagination, and maybe he scares the crap out of you, which is maybe not the right direction you want your imagination. But he captured my attention, captured my imagination. I don't know if I ever went as far as buying products. I'm sure I bought maybe some of the cheap stuff.
Some male vitality.
That's probably what I need. That's how I got off track, dude. That's probably what my homeopath's going to come back with.
You're going to need a bottle of the male vitality. Buy one, get one free.
Yeah. Good news, we got a great deal. Here, I guess bad news is you're acting like a little bitch. Great news is there's a special buy one, get one Alex Jones male vitality.
Yeah. The frogs are gay. Buy the
And turns out he was right.
He was right about the frogs.
Yeah.
I talk about this on my show all the time. I'm like, listen, you guys are all beating up on Alex Jones. He was right about the gay frogs. That says it all. That's all you need to know. Lo-fi Republican Jeff passed the DeSantis free speech bill for Break the Cycle's Facebook.
Okay. Yeah. So we did talk about big tech legislation, and that was the thing, is actually solving this problem. It is a very complicated legal question, and I don't claim to understand it, but there is definitely a legislative interest in addressing these questions. And I know Senator Jake Chapman, he would be a good point of contact. He was the one working on it, and he would be the one who you should probably ask him, hey, why didn't this get done? You guys have one job to do, protect us from these big tech people,
right.
So get on his case, and he'll teach you about it. If you're in Iowa, reach out to Senator Chapman, find out what's going on in big tech.
I've been calling the big tech companies political predators. That's what they are. They're pushing a political narrative, and they're literally censoring anybody with political views they don't like.
Well, supposedly they're harvesting all the data in the world to feed into these AI algorithms, which will then control and govern us in whatever this new fourth industrial revolution hellscape is going to be. And then, according to Whitney Webb, is that a lot of these concepts were founded out of, defense research projects. Hey, we want a profile in everyone. We want predictive programming. We want to be able to. So the big thing is we'll see how far Biden's able to get with this domestic extremist agenda. The sad thing is, and this is, just God help us, God be with us. It looks like Biden right now is a sitting duck in the water. So probably if they're going to move in this domestic terror direction, there's probably going to need to be some sort of precipitating event, some sort of catalyst to justify that. And God only knows. But it seems like Biden is already a sitting duck dead in the water, and that thankfully Kamala Harris, people really don't seem to care for her. She's done enough to damage her reputation where she's, I think, dead on day one too. So it's okay, what are going to be these other mitigating circumstances that would motivate people into this? So brace yourself and pray for the angels to protect us. Do you remember when there was that missile warning thing in Hawaii where there was like, so what was your take on that? What do you think actually happened there?
No idea, man.
Did you ever listen to Tulsi on Rogan?
No, I didn't hear Tulsi talk about it. I should have listened.
Supposedly the official explanation is like someone made a mistake or whatever.
Right.
I believe that a missile was actually launched, but some sort of benevolent alien force intercepted it in high orbit.
Well, have been watching a lot of information recently about this final card situation. Have you checked any?
I don't know what that means.
So there's a lot of people and some pretty high up people that have been inside the extraterrestrial sphere for a long time, who seem to think that all this stuff has been super planned that's going on, and that the last card, the final card to get full control, is the threat of
UFO invasion.
They're
really going to do that?
Well, and then if you start thinking about it, how they were talking about the Pentagon actually finally released that they've seen UFOs.
Well, that's been another creepy thing that's been completely not talked about nearly enough. Like 6 months ago, you had one of the heads of the Israeli spy agency saying that, I have permission to talk about this now.
And the Pentagon released that they actually have seen UFOs.
Well, in the video footage.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, which is still so grainy, and it leaves a lot of questions. But, I mean, so what I had been told is that, at the atomic era, after we started getting involved in nuclear weapons, that triggered something in the intergalactic community to get more involved on Earth.
Right.
So I think there's agreement that aliens exist and that we're not alone in the universe, and that'd just be humility when you look at how expansive the galaxy is. The question is, to what extent are aliens involved in the Earth's agenda?
Currently.
Is there truly reptiles harvesting adrenochrome? But, I mean, that almost helps me think about the world, because, like, I've eaten caviar before. I've eaten veal. So if, like, really this is just some evolutionary predator where, well, hey, this species of reptilian just really love the taste of baby blood, and so they're just doing what's in their best interest. It makes it easier to kind of like sympathize and like I could see that. Like, yeah, we're just doing our part on the food chain, So I probably am in the David Icke realm of things. That was when David Icke did his podcast with London Real. That was huge for me in terms of just. Because again, I need to talk to this more with my homeopath or whatever, but like how psychologically stressful the lockdown was, just for me personally, being in a position of, okay, here's and I remember listening to that Mike Osterholm guy. So like the day of March when we shut down the government, like I was going around to the old people in the Capitol, like saying, hey, it's great knowing you. Hope it works out. Because I thought it was going to be as severe as they said. I thought we were going to face...
A lot of people did.
Yeah, I thought we were going to... Because it was on the Rogan show.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, this is going to be 10 times worse than the average flu. A handful of you guys are going to die. So I'm just going to go around and say goodbye and just, hey. But then I noticed, like, a lot of the old guys, like, they didn't care. They're like, I'll be fine. And then they all were. But I was in that attitude. And then you get home. And, like, so being in my position of, okay, this is obviously a huge issue. People are freaking out. I'm supposed to be in a position of responsibility where I can provide for people. And then I look at my cover, like if this was a real emergency, am I in a position to help people? Am I in a position to help myself? And the answer was like, no, that I was incredibly fragile. Just like everyone else, I'm completely dependent on the grocery store. I'm completely dependent on the gas station. So I just had this huge realization of my own fragility of like, oh, wow, if this is serious, I'm screwed and I'm in a position to help nobody. So, like, that was me the first 2 or 3 weeks of the pandemic was like, this is really sad. I'm not nearly the man I think I am. I'm weak and I can't help anyone. I shouldn't be in this position because we really need someone to help and help people lead. And then David Icke comes out with his interview, and what happened was so thankful to me is I saw my constituents emailing it out, and like one of my favorite constituents emailed it to me and CC'd the mayor and a couple city councilors. And I was like, all right, good. Now we can, like, David Icke's legitimate because it's my constituents are sending it. This isn't me on my own. This is my constituents sending me very information that I need to take incredibly seriously. And at the end of that interview, David Icke does talk about the off-planet kind of element of what is truly driving this, and where are these ideas coming from? Where's this technology coming from? So I've been obsessed with outer space for a while. I love the Star Wars franchise. When I was a young kid, I used to fantasize about being a general in some sort of intergalactic war. So yeah, I'm all about it, and I do ask. I just said the aliens. I mean, the good ones are non-interventionists, and that's the thing is like natural law, and these cycles have to play themselves out. But yeah, I believe that at any given time, there's a million or infinite angels that you can call upon at any moment to help you. Angels, aliens, I don't know. They might be synonymous in some contexts. But yeah, a lot of crazy cosmic stuff happening.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, and that was one of the things that they talked about was like the aliens aren't really like out for like human blood. They're just going to use.
Well, supposedly there's different species.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there is too.
And they're competing too. And then even within it, this is the other thing. There's this woman, this channel type lady, Ingrid, who's one of the most beautiful women I represent. She's big on this, so I have to listen to it all because I'm, got to keep up with her. Talk about just the schism in their own society too, which is amazing to me how when you look at the schism in society, like it almost comes down 50-50. Like I think the vaccine rate for America right now is like 52-48 or something. Like it's amazing how with this divide and conquer stuff, it's able to like schism things almost 50-50. Supposedly the alien society is the same way, where like one group is like, hey, can we be less imperialistic towards this Earth colony versus, oh no, we need to harvest all the resources we can. So like that's why I love the yin yang so much as a spiritual symbol, as just the constant duality driving itself forth, and why I can look at my quote enemies, whether it's the CEO of Pfizer, Dr. Fauci, Bill Gates, whoever it is, I can genuinely say I love you and I respect you and I have no ill will towards you, because my perspective of their evil, like that's the thing, I don't necessarily believe in good and evil. It's just different perspective. From my subjective perspective, my subjective reality, what they're doing is evil, to depopulate the planet, sterilize people, all that stuff. But it's because that they're doing that gives me the impetus to be a better person. Sure. So that evil is driving me forward. So the darkness is driving the light, which drives the darkness, which drives the light. So that's why when you view this unified whole, that I have to thank these people because they're giving my life purpose and meaning, and they're giving me a reason to improve myself and to study the law and to help others. So I can genuinely be thankful for them. And that seems to be just this kind of cosmic wave of life that's cosmic coming. I mean, that's the grand mystery. And that's why my favorite Alex Jones quote, I forget when he said this, but he was like, God doesn't even know why he's here, like type of thing. Like just the mystery being mysteries on mysteries on mysteries and mysteries. And like the Shakespeare quote, there's more to heaven and earth than is dreamt of in your philosophy. Like that's really true. And I love that and I live that. And that's why I want to adopt as much humility as possible. And why like Gandhi would say, like, I'm the dust on the road. I'm beneath the dust on the road. I'm crushed by your foot and I'm crushed on the dust that, like, he would just go to great extents to just eviscerate his ego and adopt as much humility as possible, because you are just one twinkle in the sky in this grand cosmic experiment bearing witness to this whimsical moment of time. And it's just so crazy. Everything happens, and it all happens in the present moment. It's completely insane. It blows my mind thinking about it.
It is, and I think that's a good place to end, Jeff. That was very poetic at the end there.
Oh,
man.
Thanks, man.
I liked it a lot. But can you listen? We're gonna go into the exclusive.
Yeah, that's what I want. I don't want these freeloaders. I want the people paying money.
We're gonna go to the exclusive. That's where we could talk about the whole last half of that was definitely. It would be viewed as controversial. We're going to get more.
Yeah, by your stupid. For me, it's mainstream stuff. This is what the people are ready for.
We're going to get more controversial here in a minute. But why don't you tell all these wonderful people that are watching or going to see this when it at the replay, how they can support you, where they can find you, what they can do.
So Jeff Shipley 77 on Twitter, Facebook.com/PeaceLoveIowa. For those of you who are still on Facebook. I view that as a personality defect, perhaps, that I haven't been banned yet, but I think they just haven't banned me because I am an elected leader, which I guess means that I am better than you in some ways. No, I'm just kidding. No, the haves and have-nots. I'm sorry, that was terrible. We should all be censored together. Facebook.com/PeaceLoveIowa. PeaceLoveIowa.com is a great website for me. So hit me up on Facebook. Come to our website. You can put a donate link on there. We have some petitions. I have a whole list of newsletters. So if you want to read something I wrote 8 months ago, you can find that on my website. And just stay in touch. We'd love to get acquainted with you. Genuine human connection. This is our currency. The connection, the experience, the love that we share as human beings, that's what's more valuable than Bitcoin, I would argue. So that's what's going to get us through these times. Thanks for having me.
But Bitcoin is a second closest.
Depends on the day. Depends on your subjective theory of value.
Absolutely. I might start doing shows further back like this. This has been really comfortable. Usually I'm all up here like.
Yeah, you're intense. You gotta yell at your people.
I like this, man. This is nice. It's nice. You guys let us know in the comments of the show and the replay whether or not you think that the guest in the studio is better or not.
Well, it's obvious. I think it's way better. I think you get a better, warmer dynamic because we're human beings sitting next to each other. I think everyone should donate as much money as they can, at least a month's salary, to make sure we get the best studio that we can. Not because it's going to serve not just this audience, but the entire state of Iowa is what we're trying to do here. So we need your support. We need your financial support. If you're one of the guys that can, shell off a few shekels, a couple, half a Bitcoin or whatever, throw that in there. I know this guy's going to put it to good use. He'll probably take over the Libertarian Party or something with your support.
We're already taking over the Libertarian.
That was kind of that was a joke. It was trying to be a joke.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to support the show, you can join under any of the videos with the join link. That'll make you a member of the channel. You get the custom hand-drawn emojis and custom badges that are changing every...
Priceless.
Priceless.
Priceless pieces of art.
Yeah, by Top Lobster himself. I see Drywall O's already got the light blue BTC badge, which means he's already been a member for more than a month.
Wow.
No longer purple. He's doing big things. Thank you so much for that.
What a stud.
Yeah, or you can join the Patreon or Subscribestar at / it's just slash. Everyone says backslash, but it's not a backslash.
I don't know how computers work.
/ I think.
I'm against computers.
Calm down, Ted. Break the Cycle JS at Patreon or Subscribestar. You guys can become members. You get all kinds of cool swag there. All three of those options will get you into the private Discord server where you get.
You got to get this guy a lot. He's got a real hot wife, and he's got to keep her real happy.
And a lot of kids.
And she loves money.
She doesn't even care about it at all.
She loves freedom though.
She likes freedom way more.
She's got expensive taste. She wants organic cucumbers
and more kids. She wants more kids.
Very expensive.
God help me. God help me. Amen. But anyways, check out the sponsors too. Lorenzotti.coffee for all your delicious Italian coffee needs, delivered directly to your door. Use BTC at checkout for a 10% discount. Of course, toplobster.com, the man, the myth, the legend. He's just still in there somewhere. Definitely check him out for all this wonderful graphics. Use BTC at checkout for a 10% discount or join any of the paywalls to get it at a 30% discount. And, of course, executive producers of the show, anthemplanning.com. They rule. Check them out. See what they can do for your home life, business, or personal life. Thank you, Drywall, for the other super chat. We appreciate you. Guys, tomorrow on the show, I'm going to have the great Ryan Dawson on. It's going to be wild. Hopefully he won't get me completely banned off YouTube, but it's going to be a good time no matter what.
Yeah, YouTube, thank you. I just want to just say to YouTube real quick, we're just so thankful for your services to be able to speak to millions of people at once. And we're just so thankful for all the infrastructure you guys laid down and the investments in your equipment. And we just want to speak to the people, and we want to use you as a public square. So if what we say upsets you, please just let us say it and not be too much of a bitch about the whole thing.
That's a good point.
Thank you, YouTube.
Thank you so much, Rep Shipley. We appreciate you. Guys, I will see you tomorrow for the show with Ryan Dawson. But until then, don't forget to break the cycle.
Break the cycle, people.
Due to legal reasons, I just have to explain. The lyrics of my last song may seem to contain a violent call to action in the verse and refrain, but I just meant it in Minecraft. The helicopter part was in reference to GTA 5 and the things you do. So any violence you commit, I am not an excuse, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Wood chipper is my friend and he's constantly cold. Accusations of incitement getting totally old. Make your own choices, yeah, you have control, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Obviously I would never advocate force, unless there's due process and a trial, of course. And if you're convicted, we will make you a corpse in Minecraft, just in Minecraft. Nothing I mean, you know it. No product theaters get so close to COVID. Holy shit, I think I'm a poet in Minecraft.